Good morning, and welcome to Amazon's second headquarters at Metropolitan Park. Thank you so much. We're so glad you're here. My name's Ashley Delatorre, and I'm a Vice President of Public Policy here at Amazon. And we're thrilled to have you here today for our panel discussion on the sustainability features of HQ2. HQ2 was built with sustainability at its core, and these buildings and our entire campus here at Met Park are designed to demonstrate what's possible when it comes to sustainable construction and design, providing benefits for our employees and the community. HQ2 will play an important role in upholding Amazon's commitment to the climate pledge, which is to be net zero carbon by 2040, which is 10 years ahead of the Paris Agreement. We completely eliminated the use of fossil fuels within the buildings for our daily operations, and we're proud that HQ2 runs with zero operational carbon emissions and is powered by 100% renewable energy. We challenged ourselves to push the limits of what's possible when it comes to sustainable construction and design, and I'm proud to say that we're tracking towards both towers becoming LEED Platinum certified. To kick things off, we'd like to show you a brief video that will give you an overview as to how we got here today.
The fact that HQ2 is open to not only our employees but to the public is a humongous milestone.
When I think about how many employees have put their time and their energy and innovations into this space, and to see it all come to fruition, it's an overwhelming sense of gratitude.
We want to be part of the fabric of the community. We want to listen to our neighbors. We want to be a positive addition to the Arlington area, and we're going to do that with HQ2.
As soon as I walked in, I was like, whoa, this place is huge.
HQ2 is Amazon's second headquarters. It's a $2.5 billion investment just right outside of DC. Met Park, or Metropolitan Park, is the first two new office towers of the HQ2 development.
Amazon has been growing in Seattle for the past 20 years. We knew that we couldn't continue to grow in this area.
Arlington, Virginia, and the DC metro area had the infrastructure to support this type of development. During the HQ2 process, we met with the community and we really listened.
It's been such a pleasure over the last several years to be able to help introduce Amazon to our amazing local nonprofits as well as small businesses, and to see those connections form.
We're excited to have the community of Amazonians out and enlivening our district, and for the many businesses that are going to bring more culture and identity to our area.
We're a full-service bike shop. We're really driven by making sure that we're connected to the local community. Amazon being able to provide retail spaces for local businesses is really key, and that actually inspired me to look at Amazon in a totally different way.
We want to be a part of the community and felt like this would be a great way to continue to build our dog community in Virginia. Amazon is very pet friendly, and we thought it was a perfect fit.
HQ2 will be the first completely powered by renewable energy facility that we have anywhere in our global portfolio.
We also have a 2.5-acre public park. In our park, we've got lots of native flora and fauna, dog parks, and lots of amenities for the entire community.
I think I'll be probably stopping by here either to read after work or coming by on the weekends because it's such a nice green space.
I like the theme of nature throughout the entire building. I love that there's so many options for people to sit and, interact with their coworkers.
We've also partnered with several local artists.
This space is so well appointed and so well thought out from an architectural standpoint. It just feels really great to be part of that experience.
Hard to believe that there's a building like this in the DC area. You get so used to the brutalist buildings, the ones that you just kind of run past, and to realize that this is where I'm going to be working now was pretty awesome. I definitely sent a few photos of the outside to my wife as soon as I pulled up this morning.
We've put a lot of effort into making the space something that's not just a building, but something that feels home.
We're excited to be part of the fabric of the neighborhood of Arlington, Virginia, and the greater DC area, and we're only just beginning with these deep community partnerships.
It's been an incredible journey. We've learned so much. I could not be more proud of what the team has accomplished.
So as you saw, HQ2 is setting the example for what it means to be a world-class office space that's leading the way for sustainability. And I'm excited to introduce you to our esteemed panel of experts who can share more about it. First, please join me in welcoming WTOP's Dave Johnson, our moderator for today's panel. In addition, please join me in welcoming our panelists who are experts in sustainable building and sustainability at HQ2. Gina Clem, Director of Workplace Innovation and Sustainability for Amazon. Brian Earl, Principal Architect with ZGF Architects. Charlie Gronick, Development Manager for Seneca Group. And Fernando Arias, Director of Sustainability for Clark Construction. Thank you all so much, and looking forward to a great panel.
All right, thank you, Ashley. Happy Friday, everyone. I say that because, as always, I got lost. And I started in Jasper, but we're in Merlin, right? Mm-hmm. Right now here in the small event center. But as I came into Jasper, everyone was saying Happy Friday. As I came out of Jasper, everyone was saying Happy Friday. As I came into Merlin, they were saying Happy Friday. So Happy Friday. And can I also just get this out of the way? This is something that now I really feel near and dear to my heart. When I come back in my next life, I want to come back as a dog of an Amazonian. Because the dogs are just having too much fun. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have some fun today because this is exciting stuff. And again, I'm going to introduce, I call basketball for a living. And basketball, there's 5 players. And they often call that the dream team. Well, this is my sustainability dream team. But it's not just 4. It's countless others that these 4 that are part of my sustainability dream team represent up here today. But let's just meet each one once again, and maybe just quickly, we'll go right down the list of what your title means and what you're involved in. Gina Clem is the Director of Workplace Development and Sustainability at Amazon. Sounds great. It is great. And that means you're doing what?
I'm leading the team that's developing the future workplace for Amazon that's responsible for design and construction, building all of our office spaces, including these amazing buildings, and then also ensuring that we're meeting the climate pledge in our office space.
And you're a surfer too, right?
I try to be.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we talk about a casual workplace, bring your surfboard next Friday. All right. Brian Earl is a lead architect for ZGF. A big college football fan, you look like you could tackle me, but your role is what?
Well, I've been working here in DC for the last 15 years on complex urban mixed-use projects and was fortunate 5 years ago to partner with a great local landowner, JBG Smith, in the pursuit of landing HQ2 here. And then for the last 4 years have been leading the design of these 2 buildings you see here today.
You're smiling. You should be smiling. This is a special place. Charlie Gronick, the development manager from Seneca Group.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So Seneca Group is the owner's rep and development managers for this project. So it means that we oversee the design and construction process, really making sure that all of Amazon's vision is put into place. My role is specifically on sustainability and making sure that we have taken all of the goals that Amazon has set and built them, which I'm excited to talk about today.
And HQ2 at Met Park is in our neighborhood, our city, and from a company that's such a part of our city, right? You were helping to build the mall, Clark Construction. Fernando Arias is the Director of Sustainability for Clark Construction, our hometown company making this our hometown.
Yeah, and it's really a privilege to represent Clark. Since 1906, the major construction company in our region here, and now really the catalyst for so much innovation in construction and design, have partnered with all of these folks since the very beginning, 2019, and therefore really bringing a lot of this idea of translating sustainability into operations for construction, execution, and things that are measurable and definable through the construction process. So we'll talk a lot more about that today.
So think about that. In 1906, you built them all with steam engines. They weren't talking about CO2 emissions. Now we need to save the planet, and that's exactly happening. You know, when I bought, and by the way, these are available on Amazon. These are official panel notepad cards that you can buy on Amazon. And you know, when the Amazon truck came to my door yesterday, as it probably comes to some of your doors, it says, warning, contents may cause happiness. This building, do you feel it already, is causing happiness because this is a living, breathing, and smiling building beyond just the greetings of Happy Friday because HQ2. I did it. I don't know. I was a C science student. I always want to say H2O. HQ2 was built with sustainability at its core. Let's think about this. 40% of carbon dioxide emissions come from buildings. I didn't know that. Somebody had to tell me that. Blew me away. It's more than industrial transportation. Yet HQ2 Park at Met Park is going to be net zero emissions. Gina, I'll start with you. How do you go about creating this incredible story?
Yeah, and buildings are a really big deal.
40%?
Yeah. So Ashley mentioned the climate pledge and our commitment to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2040.
10 years ahead of the Paris.
That's right. And so that became a key priority in the development of HQ2. And doing that in a way that we think about, carbon emissions in buildings come both in the building of buildings, and, I think folks are going to talk a lot about that today, but also in the ongoing operations of buildings. And we'll talk about that a bit more, but Ashley mentioned this as well as really exciting about these buildings is we've been able to eliminate all of the fossil fuels from our day-to-day operations. So everything, it's all electric. And then it's powered by 100% renewable energy, which means that we have net zero carbon emissions in our daily operations now.
All right. Well, Fernando, you're smiling and nodding your head. I mean, this is exciting.
Yeah, because I think it really establishes this particular project, Dave, outside of the grid and outside of the complexities of procuring renewable energy from different places. And I think it's quite an accomplishment to balance that with the programs that Amazon runs to cultivate its employee culture and operate buildings sustainably.
Yeah, Brian, you got to design that.
Yeah, it was a fun challenge. Well, you make it sound simple, right?
That's my job.
No, but that's it. It's not, and we have a lot of really talented people that help us get there. But Amazon came to us and they said, we want to design a beautiful, functional, high-performing campus. And then about halfway through design, the climate pledge came out. And this was a very fast-paced project, but we couldn't have been more excited by that because we're incredibly passionate at ZGF about sustainability. That formula, as you described it, how do you make a building with zero carbon emissions? You power by renewable energy, you make it all electric, you eliminate fossil fuels, and you try to make it as efficient as possible. It sounds simple, but at 2.1 million square feet, that's pretty hard to do. Wow. You can't just put solar on the roof. If we were to do that, it would have been like 8 city blocks of solar panels. And I think the neighborhood would be pretty upset at us because they'd be perpetually in shadow.
It'd mess up the flight path, too, probably.
The FAA may have had something to say about that for sure, and I know the Pentagon would have. But then you get into the details of, okay, how do you source the power? And we have great partners in the Commonwealth that we worked with to do that, and Amazon worked with to do that. But you have to look at every component of the building. And you think about what it took to make an electric car and the power that it takes an electric car and how big those batteries are, right? It's a lot of power. And we have to look at every component of the building, figure out how to remove fossil fuels from it, from the HVAC system to the water heating systems, down to the electric grills that are on the terraces. And actually, at the time we were doing this, it was hard to find an electric grill. They're more common now. We're happy about that. But all these little details and things you've got to check the box and find and figure out. And it took years of pushing the industry by Amazon and partnering with people like Clark to do that.
Yeah, Clark Construction, and you didn't have to bring in the steam engine this time like 1906. Charlie,
yeah, I mean, I think
it's delivering this.
Yeah, exactly.
Good luck.
I mean, I think it was really important to have that key goal of saying, okay, we know we have to electrify, right? Like that is just step one to making this happen. And so there was just a lot of energy that went into making decisions around all of those different impacts. So as you said, all the little parts and pieces, making sure we could accomplish that and then do that in an energy efficient way, right? Find all these opportunities for saving energy in the building, making sure it's not just about operating efficiently, or it's not just about electrifying, right? It's also about operating efficiently.
Right. Well, I tell you, this building, it contains happiness because you should feel good about working here. Net zero, not net 5, net zero, right? That's what we're talking
our
about.
daily operations, yeah.
All right, and so again, the Paris pledge was 2050. Amazon's pledge is 2040, which is why the arena in Seattle, if I go into my sports, is called Climate Pledge. We're here at Seattle Storm. Do we have any WNBA fans here?
The big one.
Let's hear it, all right? So they play at Climate Pledge Arena. That's a good name for arena. We were just touching on this, but I want to get to this. And this is exciting. We were talking about solar wind farms in Southern Virginia. And many of you might know Virginia's slogan is Virginia is for lovers, not Virginia is the Sunshine State. So somehow there's solar farms in Virginia. So we're talking about, they still call it Virginia is for lovers. I'm not sure why. It blows me away. Anyway. But it's 100% powered by renewable energy. So, who wants to start that conversation? How do you come about a building where it's 100%?
Well, I'll start at a high level and then pass it on for the details.
She has the simple stuff, and then
perfect. But it is around powering by renewable energy, but we can't do that alone, right? We also have to reduce consumption. And so, some of that was noted a little bit already, but this building, the design is so efficient that we're using roughly 24% less power than a comparable new office building today. And for reference, that's enough power or enough energy to power more than 500 homes a year.
Okay.
So it's a lot.
Well, before that's significant. How? Do you have the answer on that, or how are you doing 24%?
No.
Who's got the answer?
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of a lot of factors. I mean, there's work being done on how the building is designed as far as the facade, which Brian can talk more to. The systems that are in the building are incredibly energy efficient, advanced systems designed by the engineers. A lot of opportunities to try to recover heat from places that are, and use what would normally be wasted in a building and bring that for, appropriate use to, say, heat hot water for the showers and things like that. So there's, the team did a great job of looking for any opportunity that made sense to conserve energy.
Wow. All right, Gina, keep rocking. I wanted 24%.
Absolutely.
What else?
So you mentioned this, but the solar farm in Virginia, so we partnered on that, Amazon did, and we're procuring 82 megawatts of power. So renewable power from the sun here in Virginia, powering all of HQ2, but also all of the Amazon buildings in Virginia. And that's about 2/3 of the energy that's generated there. So the rest of that is going to Arlington County to bring clean power to the surrounding community.
So if you learn nothing else today, Virginia is now the Sunshine State. Remember that. Eco lobbies. Why should I know about that?
That's a great question.
It's got to be more than Happy Friday, and it is Happy Friday. But eco lobbies.
Well, the lobbies make me happy, so I'm happy to hear that they make everybody else happy too. And Charlie was talking about there's all these complex systems in the building that help us save energy, from the facade to the central plant to how we're reclaiming and moving it around the building. But you can't see that on your day to day. And we think it's really important that as we're talking about sustainability, to keep that talk going, because we're not done. We're not there yet. We need to find ways to expose those stories in the building that people can see and understand. And we've done that in a couple places. The lobby's a great one. We worked really hard to bring the outdoors in with these big operable doors that open on a beautiful day. I'm not sure if they were open this morning when you came down, but they were open yesterday. Those are kind of the operable windows throughout the building, actually. We have over 3,000 operable windows in the building, so people can open up their windows. But we did a lot of little things there. There's large fans in the ceiling that move the air throughout. And that space is actually set in the summer at a higher temperature than the rest of the building. Because people don't spend huge amounts of time there, we can keep it warmer, so it uses less energy. We're also making sure that we're only heating and cooling where people are, so there's a radiant floor heating system underneath that heats you from below, so we're not heating all the way up to the 50-foot height of that lobby. And then I hope you noticed all the plants in there.
I did. Yep. Some of them are nicer than the ones that I've got at home. I was making notes. I was taking pictures.
And sustainability isn't just about saving energy. That's really important, but also the effect of how we make people healthy and well. Mm-hmm. And so we did a lot of things throughout the building, like those plants, to bring nature into the building and create a better environment for people so that they're healthier as well.
Well, you have an urban farm. We'll get to this later, but on the 15th floor. Right?
Yeah.
So that's...
And Dave, I think that the strategy to use plants, in the industry we call that biophilia or biophilic design. There's a lot of hidden stories in the sustainability opportunities here at HQ2. Beside looking at indoor environmental health and all of the ways in which biophilic design and natural materials impact people and the experience that they're having in buildings, there's a lot of attention paid to another concept the industry knows as embodied carbon. And when we think about the overall climate pledge, it's really important to ensure that during the life cycle of the building, both at the procurement stage and how materials and construction operations and processes impact the carbon loading of the building, but also then during the occupancy phase and the full rest of the life of the building, there's a lot of work that we did collaboratively to ensure that we worked through a crazy event that happened in 2020, the pandemic, of course, and all of the challenges that presented to us. So we'll talk about the details of that, but I wanted to just put it out there that it's not only just about renewable energy and shiny things that the public can experience, things that make us feel qualities of the space, but it was also a lot of unsung heroes and a lot of processes that happened behind the scenes, which really brought the picture together.
And again, something you mentioned, Brian, as I said, this is a living and breathing building. It's not like build the building and that's it, move on. You're finding ways constantly that you can improve on what already, as I understand what you were just talking about.
Absolutely, and our direct client for Amazon is a man named John Shetler. You saw him on the video there, and he believes the idea that buildings learn and they evolve and they change. If we're going to build for 50 or 100 years, which is what we should be doing at this scale, we have to plan for that change and allow that to happen. And there's a host of little things that happen throughout this project. During the pandemic, after, I'm sure we'll continue to look at the building and have it evolve. The central plant, the building management system is designed to learn over time and make the building more efficient as it learns, when people arrive, when they leave, what's the demand, how much energy do I need to make sure that it's at the right temperature when people show up. It's a little bit like your Nest thermostat, but at a scale of like 2.1 million square feet. It's pretty incredible.
So make sure you do your job well, because your building is going to be giving you a review next year, because your building knows all. But this is incredible. When I say this building is really living, please, I like your building. Don't do anything to me. It's real true. It's living and breathing, and that's exciting. And before I go, you guys are the dream team. But can we have a nice round of applause for all the people working with Brian and Gina and Charlie and Fernando? Because how many? We're talking thousands that have worked on this.
Easily.
Yeah, nice round of applause for the thousands that have worked on this. Because you're exhausting me just talking what you're doing. You better have had thousands, otherwise you're not going to be able to continue. All right, we got you to where you're feeling this building is alive and why. I just want to go over some of the things, how we got to this point, because we were talking about this before. Congratulations, you have a blank slate to create the perfect building, but you want this building to be for the next 50 or 100 years. That's great. But the downside is you've got to create that. So how did we get here? This was a long journey.
Yeah. Amazon first announced Arlington as the home for HQ2 over 4 years ago in 2018, and we set off on this journey to create this campus, and that met our goals and our values, and along with Arlington's, working closely with our partners in Arlington County and in National Landing through a pretty rigorous design review and approval process. Really listening to the local community and to our neighbors, and to create this space that is just, I think, is pretty amazing.
It is amazing.
We hope our employees will love to come work in and that our neighbors will love to be a part of.
What's amazing to me is, and as I was driving here today, and I'm thinking, I'll have no trouble finding this big HQ2 at Met Park. It's the brand new. And then all of a sudden I'm driving around and I'm thinking, where is this place? Because it fits in the neighborhood like it's been here. Anybody else feel that? As you get lost, as I parked in the wrong garage, I may be here for days. I don't know how to get out of here at this point. It's a true story I'll tell. The only way I knew I was here was I read that a business District Dogs is here, right? Mm-hmm. Right. And I saw a sign for District Dogs, and I said, my God, I made it in time. So, but why it's amazing from that standpoint, how we got here, and as you just described, and working with you created something that's brand new, yet it feels like home already. So as we went through this process, give me some of the headlines. Who said you're crazy? I don't want to talk to you. Who said this is exciting? Where do we go from here, from 2018?
I mean, I think the credit, when we started this construction project in 2020, the very beginning of 2020, and the pandemic hit. So Clark built this whole project during COVID.
Wow.
Which is really incredible, particularly given...
Those steam engines are great.
Particularly given, something we haven't talked about today was in addition to the operational carbon being zero emissions, we worked really hard to reduce the embodied carbon of these buildings, which is the carbon that's used to build it. And Fernando, I think you could probably tell a dozen stories or go on for 10 minutes on what it took to do that, because it was a monumental task.
Yeah, Brian and I were in the same conference room probably the very first time we met right before the pandemic launched, and so the challenge was, how do we reduce embodied carbon? And we were like, well, what's that concept? How do you define that? What are the baselines? A lot of questions. And it's now a testament to the collaboration, the integration of the team, because there was a big conference room, lots of different folks. And one thing that we didn't expect was realizing the need to align the supply chain in our region. Because, for example, when we talk about embodied carbon, one thing that is not often known is saving vehicle transportation miles and emissions from vehicles is one of the ways to reduce the embodied carbon of the project. The further away things are from your material supply chain, the more carbon it's going to require to bring it to the job. So we needed to really link up with all of the suppliers of concrete and cement specifically in our region. And then we had to do something else that nobody really knew about. It was called EPDs. So environmental product declarations are like nutrition labels for materials. Instead of calories, it measures carbon. And we needed to develop EPDs for concrete. Nobody had ever done that before. So fast forward to 2023, this project was able to specifically procure 30 EPDs that had not existed in the market before. A total of 63 EPDs total were delivered for the project, and that means that a lot of inventorying and a lot of responsibility in the supply chain was executed. And so suddenly, the design team, the construction team collaborating on, okay, here's the strategy, here's the requirement, how do we execute this, and then what are going to be our variables that we can adjust over time? Boom, comes the pandemic. How do we adjust with shifting work schedules and supply chains? Because remember 2021, commodities, and spike on raw materials happened. So there was a lot of ways in which we needed to overcome things that weren't design-based, were not really carbon-based. They were just human-centric things. And I think that that's part of building the story of reducing carbon totally, which was ensuring that the supply chain understood the requirements, that we built up efficiencies specifically around co-locating concrete batch plants. People who may not be familiar with what a batch plant is, essentially it's like a food processor for concrete, and we located that very close by with partnerships like Carbon Cure to inject mineralized CO2 and offset the need for cement into the concrete mix, and a lot of other things that hadn't really been tried before. So this project will continue for decades to be a very exciting use case, perhaps a study example of all of the strategies that really pioneered reducing embodied and operational carbon in the project.
And the other thing I want to talk about is in this whole process, we've talked a lot about carbon emissions because that, tends to be the big focus with the climate pledge, but sustainable buildings go far beyond that. And so one of the other aspects of the delivery of this was really focused on water and what do we do around water. And so, we've set carbon emissions goals for the project, and we set water consumption goals. And so early on, the client was pressing us to say, Amazon was pressing us to say, well, what happens if we cut the water consumption in half, right? What would it be if we used less than half the water that we would normally do? And that meant that the team went through a whole exercise of studying, how do we reduce water consumption? That's with our low flow plumbing fixtures, with our irrigation design. And then once you've done that, what sources are available to us? How do you find something other than just the water that comes in from the city? Because that takes energy to produce and things like that. And so finding sources of other water was really important. So we looked at the rainfall and capturing that. We looked at capturing the water from our showers and treating that. And all of that is actually collected and reused in this building to save over 7.5 million gallons of water every year, right? And all of that added up to these amazing strategies to achieve this over 50% reduction in water consumption. And I just love this stuff because it's so hidden, right? Like it's there. Other than the non-potable water signs when you go into the restroom, you'll see the "don't drink the toilet water," right. Which is obviously a very high risk. But yeah, I mean it's these things go into, they're hidden in some ways, but really go into making the whole project this amazing place.
On the water piece, Dave, I'll finish one comment, which is the construction side. So he mentioned rainfall. One thing folks don't really get to experience is you are not on the other side of that. What happens in an open rains during construction? Again, I think really of aligning the dream team, like you said, Dave. For construction, we really need to make sure that not only are we pumping that water and locating it in the correct kind of sediment tanks, but we're also treating the pH balance of that water before it's discharged or transported off the site. A lot of these kinds of stories exist in these different buildings, and I think it's something to the testament of those thousands of employees that work on the project.
By the way, the "do not drink the toilet water" signs are available on Amazon. But no, in all seriousness, I'm glad you brought up water because Virginia may be the state for lovers, but it's also the humidity state. We have hot summers here.
We have really problems with rainfall and storms that are coming.
Well, I'm just thinking air conditionings are can anybody talk about it? Just the water, conservation of water, how that's so important because we need that for air conditioning. We need air conditioning here in this.
Well, that's a great example, and we have to heat and cool the building. We do that very efficiently, but the way big buildings do that is they actually evaporate water from the roof of the building to do that. And so we're actually, that rainwater we capture, we are using in our cooling towers instead of using municipal water, treated water, and reclaiming it to do that.
Wow.
I wanted to add something else too. As we talk about the building being a living building and learning and evolving, I think the team and the industry, and far beyond the four of us up here, but we're also learning. So all of these designs started, several years ago. And so all the things that we've learned from this that start applying to projects going forward, like this is kind of just the beginning for us. And many of the things, particularly around embodied carbon and materials and how we fit out interiors and how we're building buildings going forward, that is now rolling into all of our design and construction standards going forward. So this is an amazing accomplishment in this building, and it's the start for us to continue to evolve and improve on it. We learned a lot.
I think that's one of the hardest parts about sustainability and work, right? Which is that always know there's more that you can do. And, it's wonderful to be here and celebrating all the accomplishments, and then you also can look back and be like, man, I learned so much. It's like I wish I knew that 5 years ago, and I would have, not that I would have done anything necessarily, differently, but it's like we know that we can accomplish. We know we can keep pushing forward, and that's optimism in a lot of ways, isn't it?
Well, that's worth being excited about. And again, be careful what you say. This building's alive. It is really alive. And let's talk about this. It's not only starting from net zero is a pretty good starting point, but this should be the way going forward. You're all involved in creating workspaces, whether designing, sustainability. we expect a ripple effect. This is, as you're working with partners, didn't you just say the first EPDs, did I get that right?
Yeah.
Were created for concrete, so
well, specifically the EPDs that were produced for this project didn't exist before, but the idea of ripple effects, Dave, and the ways in which this project will go on to catalyze the industry. So I have the honor of serving on the lead steering committee for USGBC. This project is going to be achieving its LEED Platinum pretty soon. It's going to be recognized with the plaques. The new version of LEED is going to be all about embodied carbon, and it's because of projects like this that have really helped to advance the way in which the market reacted and responded to the requirements. So I just get really a sense of pride. Many of my Clark teammates are here. Many of them have worked on this project on the back end, and we have really moved.
Let's hear it for the Clark teammates that are here. Let's hear it for them.
Yeah. They really have moved the needle on what to expect in the future, both industry scale and project scale, because many of the new developments that Amazon's considering, I mean, they're not starting at 20% anymore. Like, let's go to 40, guys. What about 50? Like, really pushing the envelope. And, Gina commented on, if you don't set hard goals, you won't achieve them, right? So I feel like we have a lot of strong leadership, both with the client, Amazon, with the different folks that support the client, as well as on the design team, and it's really exciting to be part of that.
Don't let Gina's hang ten on my surfer fool you. She sets hard goals, and that's what. And you're passionate about this, and we talk about. You could say, well, this is too much of a task, or the challenges, but determination to overcome whatever challenges, because there were challenges.
Yeah, and that is absolutely intrinsic to being an Amazonian, right? We set really hard goals, and we achieve things that have never been achieved before. And we're doing it in the sustainability space.
I think, when we think about sort of that whole process, I want to say that, challenges, it's a lot to maintain, on this size of a project, all of the design and construction partners focused on accomplishing that, right? People tend to stick with what they know, right? They tend to, design and construction can be a bit, reticent to change. And so having goals, having audacious, clear goals, I think when the Climate Pledge came out, that just became this very key element to making sure that everyone knew that they needed to think about this, knew they needed to deliver this, right? And that was something that could be communicated to every partner. It became this very guiding point for all of us on the team to say, hey, you have a role in this, right? It doesn't matter whether you're, placing concrete or whether you're installing, the mass timber or whatever. Like all of us have a role in making sure that we accomplish these goals.
There's a word you used there several times, and it's been said about this project many times over the last few days. It's the idea of partnership. And we can't do this alone. It takes a whole village of people to do it. And particularly in the construction industry, which is fragmented between ownership and contractors, trade partners, architects, engineers. If we say, I want to reduce the embodied carbon of my concrete by 20%, I can say that, and I can say, Clark, you need to do that. But that doesn't make it happen. And it takes everybody working together, aligned towards that common goal. And the leadership, in this case, that Amazon showed us in going for that hairy goal and saying we're going to get there. And then the team aligning behind it and working together, because you can't solve it. I can't solve it as an architect. Right. Can't solve it as an engineer. It takes us all working together to do that.
How many Zoom calls went after midnight? My goodness gracious.
Chime calls. We use Chime here.
No, but was there, you getting that sense as you're, I'm talking, so many people involved. Partners, just because you want something doesn't mean that it happens. So there's a lot of collaboration. You must be exhausted.
No, it's inspiring.
Take a vacation. The building's in
we can take a breath to celebrate it. Obviously, having the building open, but I think we all are in this because we find it invigorating to work together. Right? It's really inspiring to have. You mentioned there's 4 of us, right, representing so many people who have touched the project, and
thousands.
Yeah, it was 7,800 tradespeople working on that, right? Wow. But that's just in construction. So
and the community too, because when the opening reel, talked a lot about community engagement and being intrinsically involved with the small business community also. I want to comment on one thing that I found a bit of an unsung hero story also, which was during the pandemic, year 2020, we're digging piles and we're digging up a lot of earth, and that causes a lot of noise. And so we started to regard the community also as a partner. And folks on the Clark communications team and other communications teams with Amazon PR as well, they developed a website and engaged with the community to have subscribers, newsletters, and more than 100 newsletters out over the 2 communicate statuses on activities and when disruption would occur. Arlington County had done mandatory, so people were stuck at home, not able to perhaps be on their own work calls. So I think there's a really beautiful story that is embedded in all of the details of these 2 buildings and into the buildings to come that talk about community engagement, workforce development, all of these other themes that are not always associated with a sustainable practice, a sustainable building. And I think we all demonstrate that a little bit here on the stage, but certainly it's a lot of the work that went into engaging with others.
Let's hear it for the Dream Team. They made the future happen now. That's pretty incredible. It's happening. You can feel it.
I mean, I'll touch on that quickly. I mean, Fernando was talking about just to bring it back to carbon emissions. We were talking about the retailers, right? I mean, there's this amazing story there where, Amazon was really focused on bringing in small local businesses, and along with that electrification requirement, right, where we're eliminating fossil fuels, we weren't sure we were going to be able to achieve that for retailers, right? Especially food service are very used to cooking with gas, right? And it's very novel to say, hey, how do we help you do this with electricity, right? And how do you change your operations? And it's amazing. We were able to work hand in hand with the retailers and help them understand what this could mean, how they could accomplish that, and bring them along. And I think that's you say like, oh, well, we're just going to electrify the building, and it sounds small, and then it is this ripple effect throughout the community of like learning how to do this. And it's amazing that all of the retailers will be fully electrified.
Everybody's on board. You're getting everybody involved,
exactly,
which is part of the community. All right, let's have some fun. We'll go right down the list. Your favorite part of HQ2 at Met Park, what you're most proud of. Gina, you have the floor first.
Wow. There's so many things. And fundamentally, I am so proud of the team that delivered this. Yep. I mean, it's just phenomenal. And so there's a couple different things. We didn't talk about the terraces and roofs. We have like over 2 acres of landscaped terraces and roofs. Many are being programmed for outdoor meetings. There's dog runs, so there's dog runs up above as well. And you referenced earlier, we have an urban farm on the 15th floor of this building that the Amazon horticulture team is leading a program to grow produce that is donated to a local nonprofit, which is pretty cool.
Wow. That is real cool. 2 acres.
Yeah.
Wow. The other fact, and this probably means nothing, but I read that stat that there's 137 door frames, and if you stack them up, it'd be 12 Washington monuments. Probably means nothing. It impressed me, but I saw that somewhere. Has nothing to do with sustainability, but it impressed me.
Big.
Brian?
Oh, favorite part would have to be the park. And it was so great yesterday. I don't know if there's anybody here from the neighborhood that was out at the Jazz Festival yesterday afternoon out in the Central Green. It was just a ton of fun to see the community using the space, and that it's, as an architect, a lot of times we're designing buildings for our client, just for our clients. Right. And to have a building where we got to design for the community as well is something I'm very proud of.
The community is part of the nation's capital. That's pretty cool too. Charlie?
Well, my favorite part about the experience is working with smart people. This is just, there's so many smart people who worked on this, and that always makes me feel like I've learned a lot, which is personally the best part of the journey. But from the design and construction side of things, I'm a nerd. The things that I like are like totally hidden from the world, and so my favorite part is our groundwater heat exchange system.
All right, let's hear it for the groundwater heat exchange.
Which is this amazing thing where we have this. There's this outflow of water that comes from the building where we are able to use that just to cool the building just a little bit. Take away some of the energy and water that gets used in the cooling towers, and it's just this kind of small opportunity that the team really looked for, these resources that were available to us to find efficiency. And I love that little system that goes in the building.
Wow. Well, no, it's understandable. It also shows the difference between Charlie and I was impressed by the free bananas. I can't even say what you just, the water exchange situation. So anyway, I got to find the other two banana stands. Fernando.
I want to underscore and echo many of the comments that the other speakers made. So for me, what I'd say is, first of all, I don't know if folks know the dire challenges that landfills are having across the U.S. Impacts in communities where they're seeking to reduce the volume of waste in landfills. And so this project achieved a really wonderful result in diverting all of its 21,000 tons. 17,000 of those were diverted from landfill for a total of 83% diversion from landfills. And to be able to do that across 7 waste streams and over 4,300 different trucks that pulled waste from this job is just a lot to achieve. And
that's 4,300 dumpsters you were talking
about.
Wow.
And each truck has a dumpster. So it really is a big accomplishment in terms of reducing natural resources and the need for raw materials, as well as being able to intelligently use some of that construction rubble, if you will, on the site for different kinds of activities, which prevented us from having to source that from riverbeds or other places where we would probably need this kind of aggregate. So waste diversion was a big achievement for this project, and I'm really, really proud of that. And it's one of the things that construction can bring to the table that's unique and outside of just design requirements.
So the construction is a solution for some environment issues. You were talking about helping erosion as we deal with floods here in Arlington.
Totally.
I
mean, it sets up the future as well, right, Dave? To be able to think about how do we divert some of this inert material that does not decompose or create public hazards, into usable things like water defense strategies or other ways in which we can repurpose that as land forming materials. And, in Manhattan, New York City, where I grew up, the reason that Battery Park exists is because there's a giant amount of excavation that went there and filled that in. So appropriately thinking about construction, demolition waste as fill material to create new land is something that our region will likely have to study further. And it's because of the infrastructure around our region and having all of the right partners to ensure that this waste is accurately and adequately going to locations where they can process it. That was, a big result as well.
Come a long way from steam engines. I think we're going.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, does it feel like a happier Friday? It does feel like a happier Friday. Because Amazon, you're setting goals. Net zero is not just a pledge, it's a real thing. It's happening in this building. 100% renewable energy is running this building. The impossible is happening. Anybody else think that's kind of cool for a Friday or any other day, huh? And it's led, thousands were involved. By the way, anybody from the Seneca group here? Any Charlie's friends? Yeah, let's hear it from the Seneca group. There we go. We already gave a shout out to Clark. Anybody from ZGF here? Let's hear it from ZGF. And I hope somebody from Amazon is there for Amazonians.
What about WTOP?
Hey. We better get back to work. No. Again, let's, Gina Clem, Brian Earl, Charlie Gronick, Fernando Arias, a nice round of applause for our wonderful sustainability dream team, the leaders. Again, as I started by saying that these special sustainability note cards, which I purchased on Amazon, and the truck said this building, or this truck may contain happiness. I believe this building also contains happiness, but also, thanks to HQ2 Park at Met Park, this community now contains happiness. This is a special day, and we thank you so much for sharing it with us, because time is the most special thing. We're not done. Light refreshments. This is the part, I bet you a lot of people in the audience are saying, when's he going to say the refreshments are on? Light refreshments are next. It only took an hour, but we got to them. Light refreshments are next. And thank you for your support and being a part of history, and now a future that is much happier. Thank you.